Even though he never labeled himself a philosophical thinker, Marcus Aurelius's literary works have risen to the level of fundamental and highly influential texts of ancient Stoic philosophy. His meditations consist of a set of personal reflections grounded in the principles of Stoicism, among which the idea of accepting fate and the practice of living in harmony with nature's demands stand out. Instead of wishing for situations to unfold according to our desires, Marcus Aurelius urges us to embrace the reality of the universe just as it is. He encourages us to adopt a flexible attitude towards the world around us, while challenging us to be strict and demanding with ourselves. However, many of us harbor the desire for a pleasurable existence and rely on our surroundings to meet our needs in order to feel fulfilled and content. We yearn for friendly relationships. We aim to achieve our dreams and goals. We wish to preserve our youth and live free from adversities. Often we find ourselves dissatisfied with our physical characteristics and natural abilities, and we struggle to accept our imperfections. To put it briefly, experiencing human life entails a constant desiring, especially in today's times, and a quite limited accepting when it comes to external conditions. However, the more expectations we place on the universe, the more vulnerable we become to frustrations. It is likely that despite all our efforts, we may come across unfriendly individuals. We might not achieve all our dreams and goals, or only partially, face setbacks, and inevitably, we won't be able to escape the aging process. Furthermore, Marcus Aurelius reminds us of the importance of cultivating self-compassion and resilience in the face of life's challenges. He emphasizes that, instead of getting carried away by negative emotions and self-destructive thoughts, we should seek wisdom and serenity to accept things as they are, while tirelessly working to be the best version of ourselves. If these inevitable experiences disturb us, we become puppets of our environment, emotionally dependent on its whims. In his meditations, Marcus Aurelius repeatedly encouraged himself to accept fate exactly as it comes and to live well, regardless of the circumstances. This video explores why it is better to accept the universe instead of opposing it and trying to change it. By the way, you will find additional Stoic wisdom in the ebook, Stoicism in the 21st Century, Ancient Strategies for Modern Challenges. Don't miss out on the chance to unlock prosperity and enhance your love life with the support of Stoicism. Check the link in the first pinned comment. Accepting other people faced with an offensive joke directed at oneself or someone they love, a Stoic philosopher, following the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, would likely adopt a stance of indifference and self-control. They would understand that the words spoken by another person do not have the power to affect them unless they allow it to happen. In other words, they would recognize that their emotional reaction to the joke is entirely their responsibility, and not something externally caused by the joke itself. For a Stoic, feeling anger, resorting to physical violence, or experiencing sadness in response to a joke would be seen as failures in their own character and self-control, and not as justified reactions to another person's actions. Marcus Aurelius emphasized the importance of not attributing more value to an event than it truly has, reminding us that the power to remain calm and undisturbed lies within each individual, regardless of external circumstances. He would advise the person to reflect on the imperfect and varied nature of humanity, recognizing that people are different and act according to their own perceptions and values. Some might be kind and moral, while others might be cruel and immoral. Some might be diligent and helpful, while others might be lazy and exploitative. However, the Stoic philosopher would understand that he has no control over the actions and words of others, but has full control over how he chooses to react to them. Therefore, in response to an insulting joke, a Stoic would seek to maintain their serenity and not allow another person's words to disturb their inner peace. They would remember the words of Marcus Aurelius, understanding that the only thing under their control is their own response and attitude towards the situation, and would choose not to add anything from within themselves that could transform the joke into something more significant or painful than it really is. Marcus Aurelius emphasized that, regardless of whether people are arrogant, ungrateful, deceitful, and unsociable, we all share a common human nature. Human nature encompasses both beauty and ugliness, so he encouraged himself to accept everyone and not be disturbed by bad people. In his mind, we are here to cooperate, not to act against each other, which goes against nature. We wish for people to act as we would like, but reality shows us that people have their own will. Their behavior does not depend on us. We can influence them, but at the end of the day, they will say what they want and do what they want, no matter how irrational and foolish their actions may seem. Therefore, spending a lot of energy trying to change others is a waste of time and would be better spent in other areas. He stated, "Do not waste the rest of your time here worrying about other people, unless it affects the common good. It will keep you from doing anything useful. You will be too busy with what someone is doing and why and what he is saying and what he is thinking and what he is plotting, and all the other things that distract you and prevent you from focusing on your own mind." End of quote. For some, the reality of transience can be a source of suffering. Is it not sad that death takes us away so quickly after we come into existence? Therefore, some people desperately cling to life, seeking ways to extend it beyond natural proportions, in search of the fountain of eternal youth. All these attempts to go against nature are in vain, as we are only given a limited time here, of which we usually spend the majority in physical decline. But there is also a positive side to the transient nature of the universe, which is that, because nothing lasts, nothing is worthy of worry. As an example, Marcus Aurelius described the insignificance of reputation. He wrote, "But see how soon we are all forgotten, the abyss of infinite time that swallows everything. You will be too busy thinking about what someone is doing and why, and what he is saying and what he is thinking and what he is plotting, and all the other things that distract you and prevent you from focusing on your own mind." End of quote. Accepting transience. The illustrious thinkers of the past, as well as glorious empires and kingdoms, eventually turn into nothing more than dust and ashes. Marcus Aurelius, in his reflections, makes a poetic analogy, comparing children to leaves in the wind. They sprout and grow in the spring, but soon are carried away by the wind, and the forest then gives way to new leaves. The Stoic emperor was fully aware of the ephemeral nature of all things and how what we consider of great importance today quickly becomes just a distant memory. He reflects on the great emperors and philosophers who once walked the earth, people who were extremely influential and powerful, but who, over the years, turned to dust and ashes. Just as leaves appear and wither away, generations of men come and go. We are born from a simple act of conception and take our last breath in an instant, often without even realizing it. Everything in our existence is transient, and our life is just a brief moment, especially when compared to the long existence of our planet, not to mention the vastness of the universe. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, and I quote, "Forget everything else. Keep hold of this alone and remember it. Each of us lives only now, this brief instant. The rest has been lived already, or is impossible to see. The span we live is small. Small as the corner of the earth in which we live it. Small as even the greatest renown, passed from mouth to mouth by short-lived stick figures, ignorant alike of themselves and those long dead." End quote. For some, the awareness of the ephemeral nature of life can be a source of sadness and distress. Isn't it disheartening to think that death snatches us away just as soon as we've come into existence? That's why there are those who desperately cling to life, incessantly searching for ways to extend it, dreaming of the utopia of eternal youth. However, all these attempts to go against the natural order of things are futile, as we are all granted a limited time in this world, a large portion of which, ironically, we spend in physical decline. Yet, there is also a positive aspect to the transient nature of the universe. Because nothing is permanent, nothing warrants our undue worry. Marcus Aurelius, for example, underscores the insignificance of reputation and the approval of others. He reminds us that, in the end, these are transient concerns, and we should not let them disturb our inner peace and serenity. He wrote, "But see how quickly we are forgotten. The abyss of infinite time that swallows everything. The vanity of all those hands that applaud us. The people who praise us. How capricious they are, how arbitrary. And the tiny region in which all this occurs. The entire earth is just a point in space, and most of it is uninhabited." End quote. The more we realize how small and short our lives are, the less reason we find to worry about trivialities, and the more we can cherish the time we have. Moreover, from the Stoic viewpoint, the brevity of life is also a reason not to waste time. Whatever it is that we want to do, now is the time. Embracing adversity. We might wish and pray that adversity never comes our way, but looking at reality, we see that no one escapes the darker sides of existence. Adversity is part of life. If we fight against it, we will experience not only the adversity itself, but also the disappointment of encountering it, despite our wish not to. However, people are often busy fighting against fate, trying to ward off the potential bad things that might happen to them. And as soon as we fall ill, lose our money, or encounter cloudy and rainy weather when we were hoping for sunshine, we lament and complain, wishing for something better to come along quickly. Marcus Aurelius renounces this way of approaching fate. Instead of hoping for a life free of adversities, it is better to wish for the strength to handle adversity. Such an attitude is at the root of a central Stoic principle called the dichotomy of control. Some things are within our control and others are not. Therefore, it makes sense to focus primarily on the things within our control. Or, as Marcus Aurelius stated, "So isn't it better to do what's up to you, like a free man, than to be passively controlled by what isn't, like a slave or beggar?" End quote. When you let your happiness depend on external circumstances, you allow fate to control you. Imagine that you are constantly worried about your partner leaving you. So, you pray for your partner to stay by your side. But according to Stoic cosmology, what happens to us can be attributed to the gods, the source of all things. Things may happen that seem tragic, but according to the Stoics, it's what the gods intended. So, for example, the end of a relationship is part of the divine plan, and our prayers will not prevent it from happening. Therefore, according to Marcus Aurelius, it's better to direct our prayers towards things we can control. I quote, "Start praying like this and you'll see. Not a way to sleep with her, but a way to stop wanting to. Not a way to get rid of him, but a way to stop trying. Not a way to save my child, but a way to lose the fear. Redirect your prayers this way and see what happens." End quote. We can't control the actions of a romantic partner, but we can work on ourselves, building mental strength to endure a potential breakup. We can't prevent someone to whom we are attached from leaving our lives, but we can develop the power to accept what happens and even wish for things to happen as they do. If we accept misfortune, not even the gods can harm us, regardless of what they put in front of us. Accepting change. The default position of nature is change, as everything is born from it, and nothing in the world is static. Not only does the universe around us change, we also change. Just look at the cells in our bodies that constantly renew until we die. Marcus Aurelius described change as something natural that ultimately benefits the whole. We could compare the changes we see around us to our bodies constantly replacing old parts with new ones, which may be lamentable for the parts themselves, but is good for the body as a whole. Similarly, our environment participates in constant maintenance, replacing old elements with new ones, always seeking the most optimal circumstances. It is the unfolding of nature's plan, and we should accept it, according to Marcus Aurelius, as it leads to the good health of the world and the well-being and prosperity of Zeus. As we explored transience earlier, change is different. Change is not just the temporary nature of all things, but the entire process of things becoming different. The universe is in a constant state of flux and transformation, never reaching a stable condition. Thus, the process of change is always occurring. Even the seemingly most immutable objects, such as a tranquil landscape or a rock firmly seated in the sea foam, are in transformation, albeit in a less noticeable manner than, for example, our lips when speaking or the posture of someone running. Some forms of life arise and perish in just 24 hours, like the ephemeral. Others, like the glass sponge, can live for more than 10,000 years, and many planets persist for billions of years. However, nothing is eternal. Just as change brings into existence, it will also lead to destruction. Without change, our world would not exist and life would be impossible. As stated by Marcus Aurelius, the world is nothing but change. End quote. But ironically, although change is the force that gives us life, we also fear it. Many people cling to situations, objects, people, and ideas, wishing them to remain unchanged. However, the change they so fear is already underway, and it is only a matter of time until their transformations become visible. When the sun is shining, a storm is approaching. When it is summer, autumn is already at the door. Trying to keep everything as it is like trying to hold water in your hands, hoping that it will never drain away. I quote, "Some things are coming into being, others are disappearing. Part of what exists now is already gone. Change and constant flow recreate the world incessantly, just as the continuous progression of time renews eternity. We are all in a river. What value should we attribute to things around us when none of them can offer us solid support? It is like holding onto a sparrow. We see it for a moment, and it is gone." End quote. Embracing your true self. Many people struggle with accepting their natural attributes, such as their appearance, physical weaknesses, and even the inevitable fate of aging and passing away. However, Marcus Aurelius encouraged himself to embrace the limitations imposed on his body and to be content with his life. He also reminded himself to reflect on the nature of the universe, his own essence, his relationship with the world, and the fact that he is a part of nature, and therefore should live in harmony with it. Some people have more athletic bodies, while others have sharper minds. There are ways to change ourselves up to a certain point, but ultimately, we are confined by our natural limits. Thus, we can spend our lives focusing on our weaknesses, trying to achieve things for which we are not naturally inclined, or we can embrace our strengths and do what we are naturally good at. The Stoics highlighted that a unique feature of human nature is our ability to reason. Unlike other sentient beings on Earth, humans have the ability to think rationally. Our rational capability allows us to transcend our raw and instinctual nature. Therefore, instead of being slaves to our passions, we have the power to overcome them through reasoning. Marcus Aurelius provides an example of how he used reason to accept the world around him, good and bad, despite his more instinctual nature suggesting otherwise. I quote, "People find pleasure in different ways. I find it in keeping my mind clear, in not distancing myself from people or the things that happen to them, in accepting and welcoming everything I see, in treating each situation as it deserves." End quote. We, as humans, can adopt such an attitude thanks to our ability to reason. Our nature enables us to overcome our animalistic impulses and follow a wiser path. Instead of blindly following our desires, we can identify these tendencies and understand how they can be a source of misery. And instead of being slaves to our desires and aversions, we can see how fighting against fate only causes us distress. Thus, based on our understanding of how things work, we can conclude that accepting external circumstances, things we cannot change, however unfavorable they may be, is a rational choice. May everyone find peace with the Creator.